Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to the 8 p.m. every Sunday. Every time at 8 p.m. Central, I lost my train of thought. At the Skull Meatloaf Podcast, my name's Ann. And we have, one second. I forgot to click live on my Instagram lovers. My Instagram loves. So I do, in fact, have a recorded Skull Meatloaf podcast. It's been around since the pandemic time. It went from Healer Haven to Skull Meatloaf Podcast now because I like talking about anything from spirituality to science and healing on your own terms any way you know how. So if you're new, there's a couple things that are important, especially because anybody that knows me, hi Tony, anybody that knows me knows a couple things, that I'm a therapist. Now, because I talk about things, especially tonight, with food and mood and body image and our experiences with our food, mood, and body image and our health journey. It is extremely important to know that I am a big believer in mindful media, that the things that I say or things that potentially may come up, I have a consideration uh, that it could potentially affect people, not just impact them. I think a lot of people talk about impact. Yeah, when we talk about affecting people, that especially when you come on with a role, when you are a clinical educator, and especially for me, I am an AMFT approved supervisor, and it's very important to know that being a professor, supervisor, and some of these other things, that I am only one person. The reason mindful media is so important to me and having ethics in your work, no matter what you're doing, is because it can affect people. So it is our job to inform. So that's what you see as a disclosure on the bottom here, because this is a tough topic for some. I would say for all of us. I know that's throwing it out there, but um, I think it is very important to know that these are educational only. This is not assuming any role between us, whether as a supervisor, as a professor, as a therapist, as a spiritualist. This is educational only for one person sharing not only lived experience, but any knowledge that comes along with it. Yet I always recognize that it potentially can impact people or affect them. And with that being said, that means that it doesn't replace medical treatment. Not only does it not assume a role, but it doesn't replace treatment. And I tell people, please consult with your teams, including your care teams, and please take care of yourself. One of the things that you will see, it's tagged on all of my areas, is this is a brave space. Sorry, I live in the city. You can hear that there's an emergency outside. I hope everybody's okay. I don't know if you can hear the things or if this blocks it out, but it's important to know that with mindful media, also having boundaries around it and what it looks like and being able to take care of yourself. So brave space is postmodern ethics that basically goes into, I don't caretake people during my lives. What I do is I consider people and I consider mindful media, and I expect people to take care of themselves. So I don't have, when I say disclosures of quote unquote safe space, I say brave space, that I expect people, because this is for 18 plus, because this is a sensitive topic. I do ask that people are 18 plus tonight. I do ask that if you choose not to listen and you're under 18, I also can't control what people do. At least have a parent near or talk to somebody if something comes up that is difficult. Now, with that being said, this is my off time. Even though I have an employer, I have two employers. And even though I am my own employer as well, it is extremely important to know this doesn't reflect anybody. It doesn't reflect my patients, my colleagues, an employer, past, present, or future. This is just me. This is me being able to have a conversation about difficult things in a brave space. And I think that is sometimes hard to do. And one of the things I like about my consistent listeners that come in here is they're extremely respectful of that. Hey, Christina. So just make sure that you take care of yourself. It's an encouragement, and then you consult people as needed. And if it becomes too much, um, you know, that's important that you, however it means, to take care of yourself. With that being said, we are, sorry, I want to switch this one on. Mental health in general and body image can be, although I'm not a believer in quote unquote like trigger warning people, this is mindful media that I want people to consider at least the topics to feel that they're prepared, right? If it's something that they're wanting to talk about, they are difficult topics. Um, but it's really important to know that the Skull Meatloaf Podcast, myself as ENC Totero, or even my business as an LLC, because it does reflect those things that we represent difficult conversations in mindful ways. So I also ask people in the comments that I really strongly encourage people to share and engage and do those things. One of the things that I tend to say is like, the one boundary I have is imminent risk, like harm to yourself or others or other things. This is where I do add this. Okay. Not just because, May is mental health. Hi, honey. Uh, Mental health awareness month. But it is important to know that 988 is the national crisis access line. So suicide, things like that, intimate partner violence, any mental health resources. If you call it from any USA state, it will bring you to technically a local agency that actually knows the resources in your agency and can get you connected to help. And why I say like you matter, reach out, or reach out, you matter, is because I do believe that. Sometimes it's about getting us to the next day. And a lot of people that are struggling with mental health, food, and mood, suicidality, and self harm. Even some people would believe that some people's relationship with food is a version of self harm. That it is important that you take care of yourself, however you need to. Yet, if you feel, like it is something that you do want to, and you feel like you are ready to talk about, I'm happy to have you here. Now, those are a lot of disclosures, mostly because, again, mindful media, and I just really want to respect people in this educational space. With that being said, we are talking about food, mood, and body image today. And sometimes just when I type it, right, like food and mood and the impact. If you go on social media, say hello to Friday if you can hear her barking in the background. Tony, can you hear her? Is she that loud? I'm going to take a drink of water. Hold on, I'm going to mute. Drink your water. Take this as a little baby break. Hold on. I just realized I was stuck. I'm stuck. I have to drink like this. I'm going to mute it. Hold on. My cords are stuck. My cords are stuck. And I just want to let everybody know that's on Instagram. Anybody that is tuning in, Christina, if you're there, or I know sometimes Phoenix or Lauren come in, just know that sometimes it takes a second for the comments to come through, but I will check it. Okay. I will check it. There we go. That was a little bright. So let's talk a little bit about food and mood. When I put the hashtag food and mood, immediately what comes up, talk about a lack of mindful media. A lot of people that are claiming to be like health gurus, some of them even in the medical field, like nutritionists, whatever it may be, coaches, a lot of coaches, sometimes that don't even have certifications in like coaching or food coaching. And one of the scariest things for me is when I go on there is it's giving you some shortcut. It's giving you some sort of, hey Moni, it's giving you some sort of shortcut or some sort of thing you need to do. When I looked it up today, it was saying like, if you have, and I am not saying this or condoning this, I'm giving an example. I want to be clear. It was saying things like, if you have OCD, use this oil. If you find, it was of metals in the brain, okay? And it was saying, if you have ADHD, then you need to get your inner ear checked. If you There was a lot. There was a lot of things that people were coming up with. It's metal in the brain or blood, or it was you have too much magnesium, or you have not enough like this or that. Almost attributing every single thing to something like medical, right? Um, hey Moni, and I see you're on YouTube too. Tony's on YouTube. Tony, say hi to Moni. Um, and it was just one of those things where I was sitting there and one of or shortcuts with, oh, if you're having if you're constipated, one of the biggest ones, again, not condoning or recommending this. If you're constipated, she was talking about putting cayenne or cinnamon on like a orange and eating it. And I was sitting there and I was like, ow, like esophagus. I was sitting there and I said, I'm not a medical provider, but I sat here and I was like, don't those together like burn your esophagus? Or what if people have these medical conditions that are extremely real? And kind of like where there are some even medical interventions that some people aren't do or aren't safe for, right? Like you have to consult in some capacity, like a doctor. And I wrote down something I heard. I just want you to know, like I tailored it a little, but I did not come up with this. Oh yeah. Some of us need healing and some of us need treatment. Just like let that sit in for a second. And as we talk about like food and mood and the body and health, I know those of us that are in here. And one of the things I love about, our friend group, thanks for the subscription, Moni, or subscribing to my YouTube channel. I'm available on YouTube now. But one of the things is some people need treatment and some people need healing, right? Some are longitudinal, slow healing, and they need to process and look at their, inner self and their culture, and they need to understand things. And other people, I do genuinely believe need like medical intervention or treatment. And I think our job in our life, and that doesn't matter if it's like, food and mood and health or our body, or if it's something like mental health, but our ability to differentiate when do I need treatment and formal treatment and help in some capacity, and when is it a place for that I need to sit with this and I need to do some inner healing, right? Intergenerational trauma or some other things. Some people with intergenerational trauma, they do need to get formal treatment if they have PTSD or symptoms that are affecting their daily and their well-being. There's evidence base behind it. Yet some people, have done all of that work and it's time for them to spiritually, physically, or emotionally heal in some way. They already have all the data. So going to treatment, does it help more is kind of like a question. Can we need both? That's a really good question, Moni. I think, yeah. I think 110% yeah, especially when for me as a clinician, even for me in my lived experience, and I've shared with people I have OCD and ADHD. And that's where a lot of my eating behaviors, food, mood, and body image came from. A lot of people would assume because I gained weight that it was related to an eating disorder. It was related to like sensory and almost like hoarding in the body. It wasn't necessarily, I was eating specifically for emotion. It was something almost like repetitive sensory related behavior. And with that being said, there is a time because I'm in mental health recovery, my anxiety, even with, hi, Adriana, my anxiety, even with my OCD is, or ADHD, I guess both. It goes in remission. It's at a 1 or 2. Even when I tell my patients, if you have a chronic medical or mental health condition, it's remission and going to a place where, hopefully it doesn't flare up again, but ultimately probably expecting that it will, especially if it's a chronic or a biological condition. Again, mindful media means I'm one person. I don't know what your condition is and I can't speak to that. That's why I say on the bottom that it's educational only. This starts a conversation, but if there's something you're triggered or thinking about that you're like, I wonder if I need to check with my doctor about that. The other hard part of this is how much with food and mood and body image and with mental health and with, medical conditions, there's a lot of gaslighting in the medical field. I know those of you that may be watching probably have experienced yourself. I know for me, I tell people I was gaslit in the medical field in my lived experience as a patient for 16 years. And because of those things, yeah, right, Adriana said 1,000%. That is the hardest part. That's the hardest part is there's so much medical gaslighting that's going on because people, even in practice, I talk about mindful media here. They're not mindful in their practice. They're not mindful what they say to people. They're not um, systemic. They're not looking at everything. They're taught to pick out symptoms and refer now. The time of systemic therapists, especially doctors, are slim. It's slim and it's turning into just this big referral system. It almost feels, and I felt like for me, just keeping me in the system. And I was like, are you guys actually trying to get me better? Or are you just waiting for me to die? And that's and whether it's, feeling versus rational thought, right? Adriana, I forgot I can pin. Adriana said, this is why it took 8 months to get diagnosed. I was constantly being told it was all anxiety. That's exactly true. And that was the same for me too, except they were missing the ADHD and OCD. Yeah, because they were just telling me it was anxiety. They were literally just kind of, because I was intelligent and because I knew the system, especially because I was a mental health provider, but I was like, no, I got referred by like one of my teachers. I think there's something probably going on. And she had been in the field for 40 years. I was pissed at my teacher when she referred me for ADHD. But then I went to 2 specialists and they were like, yeah, it's pretty point blank. And then it all made sense. And then when you get on medications and things change and things like ADHD rage and all those other things don't happen anymore, the irritability or organization doesn't become so intense. Moni said, oh, Phoenix, everybody. So Moni and Tony, that's Phoenix, my college roommate. I had to follow up on 3 referrals. That's what I mean. And then there's this thing where, again, like the referrals are nice, but you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, I just came to this appointment waiting for relief. And now to like help my medical, food, mood, body image, health, I now need to follow up on like a sleep study because you think I have a sleep disorder, but is it related to my weight? And do I need to do that first? Or is it this? And then then you need to go to a mental health provider because this is happening. And maybe people have trauma with mental health providers. And then you're getting referred to an autoimmunity disorder. And then you're going to get labs and all of that stuff adds up. Even when you have insurance now, it's not, helping. Anxiety here is some SSRIs. Yeah, like it's one of those things where there's things with especially ADHD or autism, especially the neurodivergent population. So I say high anxiety, autism, ADHD, any neurodevelopmental learning disabilities, things like that, even some developmental components or disabilities, they're getting misdiagnosed because especially if somebody is intelligent, I can tell you if you add that, that's a risk factor, sometimes not a protective factor, because they'll think that you're almost, if you're speaking too well about it, that it's almost like too clear. Let me scan back up. Thanks for like all your comments. When I got diagnosed with ADHD, I cried because it was the first time someone was like, no, you're not crazy. I know. They look at you. It was the same with specifically with OCD for me. Mine was literally like, they were like, anxiety is, or OCD is basically anxiety on crack. Like you are thinking about. And things like, and this is again, just a little bit of like an information. One of my biggest is I'm primarily obsessive only. So I am somebody where I will stay in my head. I worked a lot through the compulsions almost by myself when I was young, not even knowing it. I still have some compulsions that my family and myself and everybody else, we still have to work through. But there are ones like one of the big ones is a bad person or going to hurt somebody. And it wasn't one of those like I really thought I was going to hurt somebody, but there's emotional hurt too. And I would have difficulty with like connecting to people because of that. Even though I was really good at socialization, I was popular, I was engaged, I was a scholar athlete, I was involved with things, I could do that. But when it came to getting really close, I was scared I was going to hurt people until somebody's like, what does that look like? And I had to like investigate it. And that's just like the tip of the iceberg with like OCD. Referrals are great, but 6 months, that's another thing, is just like the access. When we talk about health, Adriana's making a good point, and same with Moni, is like there's multiple referrals and there's multiple not just that, but if you get in, it's 6 months, 12 months, sometimes longer. I waited for literally to save my life almost 2 years to get, um, into the program, that I needed to get into in order to get surgery. For people that don't know, I am open now. I'm learning to, like, be more open. Um, that I am a Mounjaro user. I had to use it for a year because I tell people the story. I was a 600-pound therapist. One day I will tell more of my story, but those of you that are on live get to hear it. My friends get to hear it, but I'm sharing more about it. Mostly because a lot of the people that are commenting were my biggest supports during when I was going through that. But when I went to go look at surgery, by the way, the third time, I won't even go into the whole story, but the third time that I went in, they were basically then putting up more walls, and I had to get 3 referrals done in order just to do it, and I had to lose 100 pounds before they'd even give me surgery because I was too high risk. And I said, "This is the end of the line, is getting surgery. What do you mean that I need to do this?" And by the way, I was at the lowest of the low, and Tony can vouch for it. Like, lowest of the low. By trade, I'm not a depressed person. I was very much in a depressive state. I was already grieving about other things. I had medical conditions, I had physical ailments, all those things. And I was then having to work and have relationships with everybody. And the pandemic was going on, and I was trying to keep my head afloat while I was gaining this weight that everybody was gaslighting why I was gaining it. And I'm like, no, nobody gains this much. Like, I'm not eating enough food for this to happen. And everybody's like, well, it was literally like waiting to die. And then to hear from professionals, you need to lose the weight, come back and talk to us. And I already had medical trauma with hearing that multiple times. So it was really difficult. And I felt super alone until I found the right doctor. So let's keep going with the comments because I don't want to miss people. I will say the program My Chart helps a ton. It does. We have My Chart here too. Keep it straight, easy to communicate, but still very stressful. You're 110%. I think they're finding ways to like help patients in the interim, but it's still like stressful, right? Like, it's still like a stressful thing. 3/4 were ADHD, younger children, as old as I kept a lot internally and care for my brothers. And there's you're really intelligent, Phoenix, and you're a woman. And you're quiet and introverted. So you add all those things together and you're just like a survivalist. You add all those things together and of course nobody would fucking notice. You know what I mean? Of course nobody would like look at those things. Did I miss any more comments? Am I at the end? Okay, I'm at the end. I think I am. So yeah, that's really, I had to check Instagram. That's really one of those things when we talk about like health, food, and mood and everything. There's all these other things. Well, what's the chicken or the egg? Do people help with mental health first? Do they help with the physical interventions? Do the physical interventions help with the medical interventions? What happens or what comes first? So going back to this, we tie in because it's May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We're tying in just like health and the medical field, like taking care of yourself, not even adding in social pressures or the media, not even adding in those other things. Yeah, that makes sense. So Phoenix said, when I finally saw, I'm assuming maybe it says physiologist. I'm wondering it's maybe psychologist or psychiatrist. His eyebrows were in the airline, like, how are you still alive? I mean, just like that, when people say, like, how are you still alive? It's the will to live. Okay, sounds good, Moni. The will to live. Whether it's with mental health, and for me being 600 pounds sitting on my couch, not being able to move and almost not being able to work, and at that point, and just feeling like people were watching me die, and it's not my family or my loved ones, but the medical field saying that I was gonna figure it out or take this home and do this, and I was sitting there just, when you talk about finding the will to live, what keeps you going? And with mental health awareness, and especially people that really suffer from food, mood, and body image, sometimes it's really hard to keep going, especially with food, mood, and body image, because a lot of it is socially acceptable, right? Food, one thing that I realized being a workaholic, a recovering workaholic and perfectionist, and on the other side, being somebody that really struggles with food, and I always have, it's really difficult to differentiate those things. It's really difficult to slow down and to be able to really understand and just to slow down at all, to find the time to stop and think about what you're thinking about. Grind culture, work, everything that's expected of us, to just find the time to reduce our cortisol so we can just fucking think is almost like unheard of some ways. Adriana says, and it's tagged right here on the bottom here so everybody can read. I remember when I used to tell my mom I had anxiety, she used to respond with, "You grew up in a loving and stable household. You don't have anxiety." It took me having a full blown panic attack for her to believe me. It is absolutely true. And that's the thing with like families, a lot of the things. And I love my family. They're finally opening up to like the struggles that my family as a whole has medically, and then also me, really understanding. Sometimes they get, a little exasperated and some of that old baby boomer stuff comes out. But for the most part, I really respect that my parents are like growing. But you're right. When you first bring it up, it's kind of like, I was a good parent. Somehow that a medical condition is reflective if you're a good parent or not, or having a quote unquote stable household, and that's a whole nother ball game. It was kind of validating that I was struggling and it was nothing I did to myself. That's the thing, especially with like ADHD. How many times those of us with like ADHD or neurodivergence in any capacity are told that like we're lazy? I told myself that. I have a fear. That's where my workaholic stuff comes in. I have a fear of like being lazy, or like if I stop moving, I'm never gonna, if I stop doing things, I'm never gonna do stuff again. That's irrational. That's not true. That's my OCD and everything else talking. But it's amazing. Yeah, I know, Adriana, me. Like we align a lot on that. But how like mental health plays into our relationship with food and mood. So let's transition to that a little bit, because Adriana did a nice transition here. Plays a huge role, ADHD plays a huge role in my food, and not in a good way. It's a comfort item, and it's so incredibly hard to change your relationship with food. It is, and it is a battle. Even when people go on medications, like I went on Mounjaro, it was a tool. My surgery, I had VSG, or I had gastric sleeve in September of 2024 or 23, excuse me. So I'm almost 8 months out. I tell people, when people tell me it's the easy way out, and I was like, who the fuck are you to know like what it took 16 years of literally gaslighting, pain, and feeling alone and doing things myself, even getting all the treatment, all the PT, all those things, that you were still feeling like you were failing, right? Like it was literally that it was something that had to do with you, but I had dormant medical conditions nobody was treating, whether that's mental health or medical, like autoimmunities or PCOS. Food can also be, it's sometimes not just with even emotions. And I always say comfort is like emotion. Sometimes it's what we were taught when we were young. Sometimes it's a sensory thing. Like that's what it is for me, is it's sensory soothing. So not so much like in some capacity, like, oh, I'm feeling like really sad, I'm going to eat. It could be like, it wasn't really connected to an emotion. It was actually a psychologist that was specialized in it that told me that. And she said, I don't think it's not mood. I actually think you self-regulate really, really well. She goes, I think it's a sensory thing when you're overstimulated. And that changed the game for me, because I realized that, taking something like Adderall maybe wasn't about, it was about organizing my frontal lobe and not being overstimulated. So I didn't have to soothe with a sensation, not a mood, but a sensation. So some of us, it is food and mood. And some of us, it's a little different, that it's about sensory. So it's about opening up this relationship with food with different lenses, instead of everyone saying like, you just eat your feelings. And it's literally like, and I say fat, I own that word. If that is an offensive word to anybody, this is a brave space. So I ask that, like, if it's not the right time for you to watch, please don't. But that is, something where when you specifically are fat, there's a lot of things that come up with that. And I want to like before I go into that, I'm going to like pause, because I want to go back to like when the things we say to ourselves when with food, with mood, with body image, with mental health, Specifically, I know that Phoenix is maybe talking about, we were just talking about ADHD or neurodivergence in this, but being told that you're lazy because of that lack of motivation. But I tell people all the time, if I'm not moving by 12, I'm not moving. That's why I'm a workaholic and I start at 6 a.m. and I don't stop till 14 hours later, because if I stop, I'm scared that I'm lazy and I won't be able to not stay, right? I won't be able to get up again. So then I work myself. It's almost like that's what perfectionistic views do. That all or nothing thinking. I'm either moving or I'm not. I'm either dead or alive, right? It's food, right? Like, I'm either full or I'm starving. I'm either doing things well or I'm failing. There's not that work of a journey. That's the difference with like healthy perfectionism. Oh, I hold on. I need to scroll back down. It screwed. Whoa, it like popped up a whole different. So thanks, StreamYard. When I called the doctor thinking about my gallbladder wasn't working, the first thing she said to me was, "What have you been eating?" Isn't that like fucking wild? You just sit here and you think to yourself, "What are you eating?" Food, I understand, right? We can validate. The problem is we keep validating that question, right? We say to ourselves, because we have been like trained to be gaslit in a lot of ways in the medical field, that it's kind of like, well, what have I been eating? And now most of us are like, I'm coming to you because I already gaslit myself because I was taught to do that and didn't tell anybody and suffered. It's because I was gaslit and then started self-gaslighting, thinking that I was making it up, that I didn't fucking ask for help and I turned into a 600-pound person. I thought I was beyond help, right? Because everybody else was telling me that I was fine, that I just needed to change my food. I was like, well, guess that's it. I guess that's all I need to do. When really there was like so much more. So much more. Hi, Lauren, by the way. I saw that you popped in. Sorry, I sometimes got to switch back and forth. Hold on. I'm taking a water break. Everybody wait. Take a break. Water. Water. Aqua. Nobody give me crap about drinking out of a core bottle. That's for another life. My mindful media is I take steps that I can take. I have reusable shakers. I have reusable water bottles. Yet this was accessible and I was saving my cortisol because I wasn't going to run around trying to find my water bottle. We pick and choose. So there's a lot of different things, right? We already covered, right? We're 33 minutes in. One of the things we covered is not only like mental health, food, mood, etc. There's a big thing, our families. There is still a very strong correlation to families, culture, language, learning theory. And it's not just when we say like intergenerational trauma, it's sometimes not even like biology with mental health conditions. Sometimes it's just what people are taught and how we say things and what we say. One of the major changes, and again, I am one person, always ask second opinions. All of this is educational only. It doesn't replace treatment. But one of the things that when I reflect, I wish there were three major things I wish people would have done with me. I wish they would have just used the word like health, just understanding food as like sustenance, right? And not in a shamey way when I was getting seconds, right? When I was clearly having some sort of sensory overstimulation and making these shortcuts, but replacing things and talking it more about health. And whether that be like mental health or physical health, but just trying to understand. And people will look at you and say, like, oh, yeah, we talked about that. You took a health class. No, they didn't. They took your BMI, which let's not get into BMI. They took your BMI in the front of class in your health class. That's what they did in mine, like 90s and 2000s. They were still, yeah, sorry, new generations. It was a little different. Like, for Gen Alpha and for Gen Z, it was different. They took your BMI and they tested like how much percentage of fat your body was. Remember that thing you used to like hold on to? Did any of you have that? Somebody had to have had that. Oh, your dress. Oh, it turns out I was right. No, I was sick, not because of what I'm eating. Yeah. That's terrible, Adriana. It's so frustrating. But yeah, like those things like that you hang on to and they would give you they would say like your percentage body fat. And of course, because I was the biggest person, they had to use that as an example. And at the time when I was like young, I don't know, I was at like 42%, something like that. I don't mind saying it. 42%. And everybody was like, whoa. And they were like, women are supposed to be whatever it is, like 15 to 20. I don't know what it is. Like what percentage body fat. And somebody was like, oh, they were 8 to 12 or something, and they're like, "That's ideal," and it was just seen almost like a beauty standard or like an accepting standard, and if you were anything over that, it was like, even with percentage body fat that you're an unhealthy person, even though I was a scholar athlete eating really, really well, and I was in sports all the time, I was moving more than my classmates, I could tell you that, and doing way more, but because I was 42% body fat, I was seen as, like, lazy and fat. You know what I mean? So there's also that. And I want everybody to know there is something very, very important. And I do say this is a mindful media. This is my lived experience. I'm only one person, but I do think this is important. I know. There's another thing. Just bodies are fucking different. Not everybody has the same metabolism, experience, or physical attributes. Not everybody is the same. Even that, not everybody knows everybody's medical condition or what they're going through. So there's that, and I want everybody to know one of the things I do not romanticize, as I have always been fat. I have always been a big person. Um, and yes, there's such thing as big bones. So stop with all of that. Talk to your medical providers and do some research, especially if you've had weight on your bones for a long time. The bones thicken. It's a thing. It thickens in order to support. That's why when you become so many weight, like for me, my goal weight is 240 with everybody. Everybody's like, wow, that's still really high. Dude, I was 600 pounds. I won't get much lower than 240 because my bones are so heavy. When I'm 240, I will look like I'm, under 200 because I have so much muscle and because of the bones. But ultimately, like that's the lowest I'm probably going to go. That's a doctor giving me that aim. But I will always, according to science, be obese or morbidly obese according to them because of those things if everybody just looks at the number. But it is important. I do not romanticize obesity. I need everybody to know that. I've always been fat. I do not romanticize obesity. And when I say that, I'm saying that as I'm only one person, but I'm going to explain what I mean by that. There's a difference in being comfortable in your skin where you are today. There's a big difference just walking out and being able to say to yourself, like, this is where I am, and I'm going to make changes, and I'm going to keep being healthy, and I'm going to do this. One thing I do not like is romanticizing any body type, right? As a body type. That's what I mean by mindful media and what we're doing to young kids. Because, guys, they're watching us. Especially those of us that are older, that are over the age of 18, kids are watching us as siblings, as aunts, as parents and grandparents. They're watching. They're watching what we say. So when you sit there and say, oh my God, I'm going to get so fat from eating this, I need to go on a diet tomorrow, big in the baby boomer world, they're going to be watching. And they're going to normalize that, and they're going to think their brain is rapid developing till they're 30, you guys. They cannot critically think. The frontal lobe is the last thing to develop. It's a squishy frontal lobe, guys, until literally 30 years old. We thought it was 20, and then we thought it was 24, then we thought it was 28. Now it's 30. We're really confident it stops at 30. By the way, that means rapid development. Every time that's what the brain takes a shortcut for them because they don't know any better. Freedom of thought is something that takes a lot of time. All of us know that. Developing your own voice, who you are. So those little things that we say, even there's a difference in being confident when you're a large person or even if you're a slender person, if we're just talking about size. And there's a big difference in romanticizing it. And I do think when people say like fat is good or thin is good, that's that all or nothing thinking, that perfectionistic bullshit that attacks us, or good or bad, who the hell are we to say what it is or is not? It's about health and ultimately expanding what we know about our own health and our own belief system, how things impact us, what our triggers are. But do I expect everybody now that I've had surgery or because I'm losing weight? I'm under 400 pounds now. I've lost, 200 pounds. Am I expecting everybody in my life to change what they're doing because I am doing this journey? No. That's the point of a brave space. It's for me to figure out and for me to do. And it's really amazing to me, I think, romanticization and shame. Like, I mean, body shame and food shame, health shame. This could be mental health, food, mood, body image. I don't care. The amount of shame and guilt. Guilt is a secondary emotion that's correlated with grief, a deep regret of something should have been done differently and people can't let go of it. And guilt is huge in these populations. It was huge with me. There's also grief is extremely, even in trauma, are correlated to weight and food, and because it's a socially acceptable way to mitigate things where other people won't notice. Because everybody has to eat, right? Maybe most of the time, people with food, mood, and body image issues, if you notice, most either I've noticed some trade, maybe they did drugs and alcohols, not so socially acceptable ones, and they switched to food, or sugar or something like that later on in life. And they're saying, well, or on the flip side, sometimes it's like they were really depressed and sad and they chose food because they're like, it's better than dying. So again, that's all or nothing thinking, like, well, if food or binging or not eating keeps me alive, I guess I would do it. I'm finding a lot that perfectionism and all or nothing thinking, this is on the extreme. I'm sharing on the extreme. Again, mindful media, consult your providers, education only, read this. Um, it is so true that guilt and trauma just stays in our body. And I'm realizing in this phase in my mental health recovery and my work as a therapist with people is really understanding like polyvagal theory, really understanding how the mind body connects, really understanding and listening to my body when I'm eating and what it's telling me. Like our body communicates with us, you guys. It tells you, and we have to start listening to it. That's where I feel like sometimes like the biggest danger is. So Adriana said guilt. The guilt I feel that I've let myself go while conveniently forgetting I have PCOS and ADHD, which can lead to gaining weight. You're exactly right. I know we have a lot of like shared experience. It's why we connect and don't shame each other. We're on our own journeys too. And Adriana is one of few I like actually can like really deeply share with. But it is that like feeling like you let yourself go 110%. Like that's what it feels like. It's really convenient to be like, it's all about you, something that you're doing that you control. But that's what we were trained to do. We were trained to gaslight medical conditions. Um, and again, on the flip side, it's important to know that there is a difference between healing and treatment. There is a difference between, hey, welcome in. There is a difference between some people need healing and some people need treatment. And that's when you need to go to your medical providers, people who love you. You need to have honest conversations. And honestly, the best conversation is with yourself. Is this a time for healing and understanding your relationship with food and taking time to understand that? Or is it something like people need formal treatment? You need help, you need interventions. And that's when advocacy comes in. Because sometimes the medical field cannot be so kind. Sometimes they are. You find good ones. Not everybody's bad. And medical treatment does help. And then sometimes it is needed. So it's important to like find a team that sees you and is listening to you and understanding whether about medical, mental health, anything. Mental health is medical, by the way. I'm just saying it because most people don't combine them. It is just extremely important to know that. The other thing with like guilt and grief, I don't know how many of you have seen The Whale with Brendan Fraser. How many of you have seen it? It was in 2022 it came out, The Whale. Has anybody seen it? I'm going to wait for comments. Hi, everybody on Instagram. It doesn't tell me how many of you are actually here, but hello. I don't know if it'll let me comment, but how many of you have seen it? But it's on the list, so some like haven't. Has anybody else seen it? I'm just curious what some people thought of it. The reason I'm drinking weird is because my cord is stuck and I can't move. Okay, everybody else maybe fell asleep. I see that there's people actually here, but so The Whale is with Brendan Fraser. It is with, I won't give away like the ending or anything, but it's basically like a morbidly obese man that it's his journey. Like basically he's kind of hiding out in his house. He's found a way to live. He's found a way to make things work, and he's reconnecting with his daughter who really focuses on like health. Like you need to take care of yourself, right? And she's like pretty, upset and rough with him about it, and the whole thing is they come up with some deal to like work together. I'll help you with school if you help me with this, right? um so yeah, it's a really interesting thing, but it shows one of the most accurate depictions of what I went through when I was at my highest weight. Not exactly the same, but it was very validating in that, it's interesting to me how many people, even within like my bariatric team, like haven't watched it. I was kind of surprised. I said, "Oh, have you seen that?" And they were like, "No." And I was like, "It's actually a really good movie." Um, it was very validating. If anything, I think parts of it like gave me, when I say like on days it was hard to have a will to live, it reminded me of things. Specifically like his speech where he talks about, let's like see, I don't know, it might kick me off. It probably has copyright issues. I don't know. Let's like give it a go if it kicks me off. Hi. Hi, saw you, Lauren. Hi. Hi. Let me see. I'm trying to pull it up. It's Brendan Fraser's acceptance speech at the Critics' Choice Awards. I believe. I'm almost positive. Let's see if we can find it. So in 2023, yeah, okay, I think this is it. Let me see if you guys can hear it. If we can't hear it, we'll just leave it. We'll just leave it. Let me see if I can present it. Let me know if you guys can comment if you can hear it once I have it up. I'm gonna share my screen. Let me see, like, if it, tell me if you guys can see it. Let's see if we can hear it. That's the biggest thing. I don't know if you'll be.
I cannot think of a more seamless way than River.
I want you to know that.
Okay. Could anybody? I can see it and hear it. Okay, that's wonderful. We're gonna watch it together because I think it's like really, really important. It's just really powerful.
If you two can have the strength to just get to your feet and go to the light, good things will happen.
Brendan Fraser's.
Okay, it's a girl. Nope. See, I want to like see him talk.
Here
Give me a
are
second.
the
Here we go.
nominees for Best Actor.
Again, I want to be clear. All the rights reserved to this. I do not own this. This is just sharing something. It's for education purposes.
Top Gun Maverick, Colin Farrell, The Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh my God, I love Colin Farrell.
The Wave, Paul Mescal, After Sun, Bill Nye, Living.
And the Critics' Choice is Brendan Fraser.
Okay, we're gonna skip forward a little. He's walking up. Can you guys still hear it?
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you for this honor, Critics' Choice Association. Thank you. It was Herman Melville who once wrote that there are only 5 critics in America. The rest are asleep. I don't know what it means either, but I'm sure glad you woke up for me.
I love him. You guys love him? Love him.
Where were you for Furry Vengeance? This movie, The Whale, is about love. It's about redemption. It's about finding the light in a dark place. And I'm so lucky to have worked with an ensemble that is incredible. It includes Hong Chow, who should have her own movie based on every character she's ever played, and Sadie Sink, who I've been telling everybody that she's incredible. Who are you? Your talent presages your years. It took me 32 years to get here. And Ty Simpkins, you won the game ball every day. And Sam Hunter, you're my lighthouse, a writer. And Darren Aronofsky, I was
my lighthouse.
And I probably should have left a trail of breadcrumbs. So, but you found me.
I'll try not to cry at the next part.
And like all the best directors, you merely just showed me where to go to get to where I needed to be.
Oh. Brendan Fraser treats me your grace.
Like a guy like Charlie, who I played in this movie, in any way struggle with obesity, or you just feel like you're in a dark sea, I want you to know that if you too can have the strength to just get to your feet and go to the light, good things will happen.
Oh.
Thank you. Good night.
I love him. I know it sounds like so cheesy for some people. I know. I cry every time. I don't care. I don't care crying anymore. I cry at commercials, you guys. Like, I used to never cry, numb my shit for a decade. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I did. I fucking numbed it, and now I don't. So I cry at Brendan Fraser and Disney movies. I don't care. Watch Soul and tell me you didn't cry. Stop it. Watch a Pixar movie. If you aren't crying, we need to have a conversation as a friend. But there's just this, I know, I love him too. But just like that final line, I think that's for anybody, food, mood, and health. Like, if you can find the strength to like just get to your feet and go to the light. I can't tell you how many times when the whole medical system, even in my insurance, everything was, really failing me. I'm not gonna, it's not all or nothing. That's a reality. It was failing me. And that line alone and watching that movie, and sometimes it's wild because I am impacted by movies, but I don't let that affect me. This affected me. As somebody that was literally almost living the life he was talking about. And I sat there, and I say all the time, like when with my body pain, my other conditions with osteoarthritis and other things mixed with medical and weight, I used to say, like, Ann, if you stop moving, you're dead. Like, if you stop moving. And that's when I started saying that was a similar twist on his, is like, just keep getting up. Like, whatever you can do, and this is for food, mood, body image, it's for mental health. Whatever you can do to just like keep getting to your feet And in the essence of that's body inclusive and disability inclusive, to be like getting to your feet might mean just like opening your eyes. If people aren't ambulatory, it might mean whatever quote unquote getting to your feet means for you. And I don't know what it is. But as we end like our Skull Meatloaf podcast, which was a heavy, as always, wonderful, rewarding, and hard topic, but whatever you can do to like get to your feet, it's so important to know the hardest thing is we, of course, need help. I don't think anybody can do this alone. But I do think it's important that the will to live has to come from with us. The choice has to come. It doesn't matter, even if there are medical conditions or barriers, it still has to come. And I want to say something you guys can't see. I can't pin Lauren's comment from Instagram, but she said, obesity and massive weight loss journeys are such an isolating experience because the shame and guilt that was discussed. What he said is so reassuring. And it is. When I say, like, I saved my life, but that speech and that movie helped me. And whatever helps you, whether it's a song, whether it's a movie, whether it's a friend, things like that. I'm not talking about depending on people. I'm saying we need people. If there's anything, grief and my medical conditions and my medical traumas the last 5 years have taught me, we can't do this alone. And that's with mental health. I knew that in my head, working as a relational therapist, a professor, everything. I knew that, like, but I didn't realize how deeply it meant until I had it in my own experience, until extreme loss, until extreme trauma and changes. It really, for me to understand that, when I tell people, like, if you are in that space with your health, your food, your mood, medical, reach out to like somebody, whether it's, and I say like 988, I'm going to post it again really quick. From the mental health side, because May is Mental Health Awareness Month, for more serious things, when I say like emergencies, suicide, homicide, homicidal ideation, things like that, you need to seek out medical help. 988 or your local, services, you need to look them up, or getting connected. There's a difference between treatment and healing. If it is at that point, I tell anybody, if it's unsafe, that's my boundaries to yourself or others. You need help. You can't do it alone anymore. And nobody should do it alone if you're at that point. But even for, somebody like me, I was slowly, I wasn't actively thinking I was suicidal, but sitting in my corner, basically, quote unquote, like with my medical conditions and eating myself to death. That was passively suicidal. I was waiting to die. It didn't matter the reasons, but I had to be the fucking reason that I stood up. I had to be the reason that I kept getting up. I had to be the reason. I knew I had people that loved me and backed me up, but I had to keep going to the light. And that's my thing that is so important. Like, as you leave today is, this journey with food, mood, and health is so fucking heavy. It's so difficult. It's so trying. It's one of the hardest things when I say grief and trauma, the medical intertwines that have happened, the underlays that I didn't even know existed. It is hard fucking work, and it's going to be happening for the rest of my life. But if I can tell you something, I won't be thankful for my grief and trauma medical conditions. I put that on my post, like, fuck anybody that says that. Be thankful it made you who you are. Fuck you and your toxic positivity. That ain't going to happen here. I'm for a brave space, but not a delusional space. One of the things is I won't be thankful. I will be aware that it impacted me. I will be aware that I grew. I'll be aware of my strength and my bravery, but thankful. Don't be toxically positive. Don't be intrusive or insert yourself. My final thing that I want to say is a little educational piece. If you're wondering how to support somebody that's struggling with mental health, food, and mood, it's being there. And sometimes for me, it was the people that were saying things like, I'm worried about you, because being a perfectionist, I always took care of myself. I always was the person that had everything together, but it was the few people that looked at me and said, I'm worried. They were people I trusted and loved, and they said, I'm here for you no matter what your journey is. I'm not going to judge you, and I'm worried. And that was very important. And two, just the focus on health. Like, is there anything I can help on your health journey? Not your weight loss journey, nothing like that. Nothing about what I looked like, just my health journey. And the third thing is when I came to people with what I was doing, not shaming me, but celebrating it. It's so important. So I would love any final comments. Seems like 9:00 is the hot time. I get a lot more people around like 9:00. Maybe I should move this to 9 to 10 instead of 8 to 10, 8 to 9. Hi, everybody new that's coming in. We're finishing up like the Skull Meatloaf podcast about food, mood, and body image today. But I want to know if anybody has any comments or things you want to say to anybody struggling. It could be with mental health as it's Mental Health Awareness Month. It could be anything from food, mood, body image, any piece of advice that you yourself have learned. It is extremely important. Anything you want to say to others. And we'll see if anybody comments. I will pin it here. And if there's anything I realize, people impact people. So something you say, whether it will impact me or even you saying it will empower you, but it will also like help other people. So if you have anything for anybody else before we sign off for today, I would love any final things from all of you. If there's anything I've realized from friends, family, even my clients, people are just full of knowledge and experience from their pains that have been some of their greatest teachers. They really have taught them a lot of things. And they have a lot to say. So here's Adriana's. It's okay to not always have your brave face on. That's for brave, B-R-A. Or is it brace? Did you mean brace face? Like it could be brace. I could see like bracing yourself for things. But I would think like brave face. Not having like that brave. Yeah. So brave. Like it's okay to not have that brave face on all the time, you guys. It is masking, especially in this society. Look at our social media. Look at all the pictures. I want you to do something. I'm not saying go trauma dump and put all terrible things, but how many of us have an honest, realistic view of things that go on in our daily living? Even our bored days, like, hey, I'm not doing anything. Like I'm sitting in the back. You know what I mean? We just put on these fronts with people constantly, including ourselves. And to be able to take that down and to be able to say like, this is okay. This is enough for today. Doesn't need to be perfect or pretty or set up nicely. Or trust me, I have a lived-in house, you guys. Anybody that would ever visit me, there's dog blankets. I have dog covers on my couch. Like, yeah, is my house clean? But my baseboards fucking suck. I can't kneel down. My baseboards suck. My bathroom is nice. Is it pretty or immaculate? Do I have stuff decorated? No, but I have really nice spray that makes it smell good, and I have good candles around my house, but it's a lived-in house. I do not have a perfect house. So that's like an example. I don't put brave faces, on anymore. I put honest faces. So any final thing that anybody wants to say before we sign off for the day? I'm still crying from Brendan Fraser. Ooh, Fraser. I know there's a specific way to say his name. If not, we will sign off for the night. You can see, and it's not just because I'm tired today. This topic, I want you to look at my face. Go back to the beginning and watch my face. And now we're an hour and 4 minutes out. And look at my face again. I can tell because I pay attention to my body now. I look more tired. By the way, I go to bed at midnight. I'm not physically tired, but my brain is tired because this is a hard topic. It's holding a brave space. It's being able to think and share and be vulnerable. That's the other thing. This shit takes energy. To heal and do work, whether it's treatment or healing, it takes work and energy. And it's important to listen to your body. My body right now, I'm watching it. It's telling me it's done. So I'm going to go listen to it. And I'm going to go offline. I'm going to rest and do nothing else. Listen to your body. It's always talking to you. It's talking to you most of the time before your brain is. I absolutely love and adore all of you. You're wonderful creatures. And as always, I always say, evolve and heal on, my friends. We are going to see you next week at 8 p.m. Central, right back here on the multi stream. And I hope everybody has a great night. And we will see you very soon. Bye.